Namaste.
Hi. Yeah.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to VATAVARAN Talks, our monthly conversation series on environment. On behalf of CMS VATAVARAN and IUCN CEC, I welcome you all to this fantastic panel of experts who are talking today on inspiring conservation action, the power of exploration and behavior change communication. Before we start today, I thought it's appropriate to talk about what today is. Today is July 3rd, International Plastic Bag Free Day. And just a gentle reminder to all of us how harmful single-use plastic bags are. I mean, 5 trillion plastic bags are used worldwide every year. That is almost 160,000 bags every second. And it takes just a gentle reminder again that even a single plastic bag can take up to 500 years, way later than we all or even our grandchildren can to break down or to degrade. And the harm it is causing to animals, not just the cows and you see on the street, or even the marine animals are killed by plastic bags annually. That's more than 1 lakh every year. And unfortunately, even less than 10% of the plastic bags are recycled globally. These facts and figures are just to give you an idea how harmful plastic bags are and what we need to do urgently so not stop using them. I think that's our piece for on International Plastic Bag Free Day. But let's move to the conversation today. Let me start by introducing myself. My name is Vasanti. I head the Center for Media Studies based in Delhi, in India. I'm also a communication strategist and a researcher. I've been working in the area of media, gender, and environmental advocacy for the last 30 years. Me and my team has also founded something called CMS Vatavaran, which is Vatavaran in Hindi means our environment. It is Asia's largest green film festival. I'll talk a little bit about it later on. But I also serve as the regional vice chair for South and Southeast Asia in the IUCN Commission on Education and Communication. CMS Vatavaran, for those who are new and who are not very aware about it, is an initiative of our research-based think tank called the Center for Media Studies. It's a 34-year-old organization, again, informing and implementing a lot of research studies and programs in India and in Asia. This particular initiative, CMS Vatavaran, was our way of leveraging communication technologies, strengthening capabilities, and curating very collaborative spaces to accelerate solutions on environmental issues. And today, after almost 2 decades, CMS Vatavaran is also recognized for its biennial International Film Festival and Forum, and Asia's largest wildlife and biodiversity film festival. And for those who are new to IUCN CEC, this commission, the IUCN Commission on Education and Communication, is a global network of experts driving change for nature through education, communication, and knowledge sharing. It is one of IUCN's 6 in conservation. So anybody who's interested in conservation, education, and communication can become a part of this network, and you can easily become a member by just simply applying online for them. So I invite all those who are watching, and if you're on a mission and you want to connect with others who are working on similar agenda, please do become a part of this network. I think we have a fabulous panel of speakers today, 3 very well-known and reputed members of our network also. So I want to start by introducing them and then perhaps taking a little time to talking to them. The first one, I think a very well-known one, is Dr. Bibab Kumar Taluk. Talukdar, who is the conservation biologist and executive director of RNEC. And RNEC is a very well-known and quite a reputed organization based in Assam, Guwahati in India. And his efforts with protecting his and RNEC's efforts in protecting rhinos, elephants, and river dolphins in India. He's also the IUCN Asian Rhino Group chair, and he has been contributing in many ways. Of course, in Aryanak, he does many other things, and I hope he can share some of his strategies and impacts today. But I think he has more than 20 plus years of experience as he bridges science, policy, and communities across Asia. Dr. Bibdal, thank you very much for joining us today. I appreciate you taking out time and having this conversation with us. We really want to listen to you about how RNX's role has been in integrating science, policy, and people, but also your personal field insights would be very relevant in understanding how you have kind of, be able to protect the one-horned rhino and the Asian elephants in India. Before I go to you, let me quickly introduce Purnima and Laurel, the other two speakers, and I'll come back to you, sir. The next speaker is Laurel. Laurel is reference from Dr. Yannick, who is from the National Geographic Foundation. And Laurel is herself a National Geographic Explorer from Hong Kong. She's a journalist, photographer, and a filmmaker. She covers conflict, climate, and conservation across 30 plus countries. Her work has earned her an Emmy nomination, Time Top 100 Photos, and awards from quite a number of places. She holds degrees from Oxford and Georgetown and has played for Hong Kong's national rugby team. Oh, that's news to me, Laurel. Great to have a player who's also an activist and a communicator herself. Thank you for joining us, Laurel. It was a pleasure, and I'm grateful for Dr. Yannick to able to refer you to us. And we look forward listening to you about your strategies and your experiences of how exploration and behavior change communication has been able to inspire action in conservation. And my final speaker today, is Dr. Purnima Devi Barman. I think she needs a little introduction because she's so well known now. She's a wildlife biologist from Assam again. She works certainly with Dr. Bibab Talukdar, but she's also known as the Stock Sister because she's founded this Hargila Army, which is mobilizing 20,000 plus women to protect the endangered stock. She's also earned lots and lots of awards, including the UNEP Champion of the Earth and Time Woman of the Year 2025. And we are very proud of Purnima and her work. But her work bridges conservation, women's empowerment, and education. And so we would love to hear some of the work that she does, especially in the role of emotional storytelling and cultural pride and women's empowerment in changing attitudes, especially to animals like the Adjacent stork, which was not very well known or liked by people in the community. But before I go to all three of you, I thought it's my job as a communication scholar to kind of summarize in very few slides on how communication plans are usually built. And I think our viewers who are watching this would identify with me when they see that how most programs and campaigns are designed. And this is how we all work towards it. Perhaps not so much strategically in smaller communities where you may see an issue and start working with them instinctively, but in larger design programs, that's how you set a goal, you assess the context, you identify who your audience are, and you create messages, you decide the strategies and the tactics, which medium to use. Should we use songs? Should we use one-to-one person? Should we do radio? Should we go do interpersonal communication? Then you try to measure whether people even got the message that you were trying to do. And then obviously, implement what you have thought about and also take the feedback again. This is the usual way of doing it. And in behavior change continuum, and why are we talking about behavior change today? Because behavior change is not a simple thing. I mean, we all have strange behaviors that we do because it's sometimes unexplainable. But there are different stages in behavior change science that we know now needs different strategies to help shift from A behavior to B behavior. For example, whether it's my attitude towards using plastic, or my attitude towards the street dog, or my attitude towards wasting the water when when the tap is leaking. So you all know that these are the areas that we need to work on. And I think the hardest is the action and maintenance. In conservation, I think the maintenance is the toughest challenge all of us face. We are able to reach out to people, they are all aware about it. Simple as smoking is harmful to all of us, we all know, but we still smoke. So or we know that we shouldn't waste water, but we still let the tap go. Or we know that using chemicals will help me in getting better produce, but it will harm the soil, it will harm our health, but we still use it. So how do you make that nudge to make sure that the action and the maintenance continues? I think that's the challenge today, and I think that's where we will be discussing, and I think that's why we specifically asked Dr. Purnima, Dr. Bibab, and Laurel to join us, because they will tell us how that emotional and that cultural and that community nudge can happen, the connect can happen to make sure that that continuity of action and maintenance works. Just to summarize that, this is the slide we do. It actually, I have a presentation which is more than 3 hours, but I just thought it's worth going to go through a recap on what we usually do in a behavior change communication model, or these are all based, of course, on experience. And for example, we all say know your audience, but really knowing them in terms of what language or who is it, but not just that, but their needs and their aspirations is more important. And two, in conservation, we often try to scare people, especially with climate crisis. And that we know now is not something that really moves people. It is love, but not loss or fear that moves people. And content, we all know we're good at making content, but how do we reach out to the people that we really create the content is the challenge today, because we're all bombarded with so much information. How do we kind of move the ball and make sure that my content is heard by the audience I've created? And the surround experience is very important, because we know that any one person at any time is bombarded with so much information. But if I can hear the same message from multiple sources, my ability to move the action and to maintain my action is probably, the probability is higher. And that's again, these are all coming out of research outputs and studies that have done in conservation communication. And then the number 5 is work with trusted voices. Obviously, though you cannot get a film star to talk about something they don't know about. It's about the community and the community people who are working with the, like Purnima is working with stocks. So if I want to do anything with stocks, I will talk to Purnima. I will not talk to, like, say, Amir Khan or somebody else who doesn't know anything about it. Focus on conservation. Sorry, conversation, not content. I think the most important thing in conservation that we do not do is have enough discourse and discussions with the people that we want to change behavior in. And I think that's important. So the focus is on creating a dialogue, creating not just a dialogue with me and the experts, but the others talking to each other about what they heard and what they want to know more about. And finally, and the biggest the thing that I love about the work that I do at CMS Vatavaran is stories work. And we've seen many examples, and I'm sure we'll hear many today on how stories can touch both my heart and my mind, and help move that behavior from what we want to what we aspire to be, to continue maintaining that lifestyle that helps regenerate our planet and our biodiversity instead of harming them. I think I'll stop there and I'll stop sharing also. I just wanted to give this little bit of a background so that we are setting the context to what behavior change science is saying. And there's a lot of research happening there over the years. So over to you now, Dr. Bibda, because I think I really want to hear about your field insights on protecting flagship species like the one-horned rhino and the Asian elephants in India. I think you've actually done very interesting scientific research and also on-ground conservation. How have you used these two to leverage strong public communication? And I would be very interested in knowing your strategies and also the impact. So over to you, Bibita.
Okay, thank you very much. See, we have been trying to find out ever since, RNA was established in the year 1989, how best we can complement the effort of conservation. And we realized the information gaps that, was prevailing during that period of time. That has put us to, strengthen our effort in terms of applied research in order to find out, where the problems are. And then, based on the results from the applied results, we try to communicate at the appropriate forum in order to, ensure that the results that we derive from our applied research are actually helping conservation. So those are the two, the applied research, then, we do communicate. And that has played a role, a very good impact, especially in terms of rhino. Okay, I would like to flag that the rhino conservation has been the epitome of conservation movement in Assam for over 100 years. Okay, so and that has really triggered the overall conservation in Assam. And fortunately, because of the proactive steps taken by the government, because of the good communications among the government department, and also communicated by a strong voice from the people, that rhino has to be conserved. And that is why rhino, which was once till 2008, the greater one-horned rhino was an endangered species, it has been downlisted to vulnerable. So downlisted word, sometimes gives a negative feelings. That means things are not good. But in this case, downlisting means that the situation has improved and conservation has won to some extent. Okay, so that is how we visualize rhino. And of course, rhino conservations everywhere are always challenging, and poaching is one of the issues which are often highlighted, but that is not the only issue where we need to put emphasis on. So now if we see, the government effort has been able to contain rhino poaching from 41 in 2013 to only 2 in past few years. Okay, so now the effort is to be put on habitat restoration because our rhino populations are increasing. And that is where we need to really guide the government how the habitat needs to be restored so that within that habitat, we can house more and more herbivores, including rhino. So those are some of the pathways that we are adopting. And in each level, communication is the key. If we want to seek support from the communities, we have to communicate. If we want to seek support from the law enforcement agencies, we have to communicate. So knowledge is one thing, but communicating the knowledge that could lead action is ultimately where the conservation's future depends. So that is where we have been working in Assam. And of course, the problem of rhino and elephants are different. The elephant problem is more like the human animal animosity which has triggered in past few years, and casualties in both sides are quite significant, and we have been trying our level best in order to reduce it. But the elephant being the largest animals, and then it's encountered with people directly in certain areas, so it really is challenging issues that help us to learn more in order to find out what strategy could work in a particular landscape. and what strategy may not work in another landscape. So that is where we know that field research and interactions are very much important.
So what has worked for you? Can you share a few examples of how, when you are connecting with, say, the communities, what has worked for you, say, for the to counter human elephant conflict and the challenges that you face there in that conservation attempt versus the habitat restoration now that you're doing for the one horned rhino? What is that communication? How has that communication worked for you?
Okay, in terms of communicating with the local communities, for rhinos, it is a little easier because the pride feeling is there. Every
Ah,
Assamese people are very much pride of rhinos. Okay,
okay.
they are very much concerned with rhinos. In terms of elephants, it's not that people doesn't like, the elephants, but continued, the conflict that has arisen because of mainly the habitat degradations, the negative interactions between humans and elephants has become is little challenging in convincing some people where the intensity of conflict is more acute. However, we have started working with them in order to make them understand the behavior of the elephant because they are large animals. They themselves know in small areas they cannot live, and that is why the concept of corridors are there. The concept of corridors in case of rhinos are not that prevalent, what in case of in case of elephants, because they are long ranging animals. So we are now working with the people basically to help them understand the behavior, help them to protect their crops and other things by putting some solar fans so that it can save, basically to reduce the casualties and the property damage, so that we can re-strengthen the living in harmony with elephants, because people have been living in harmony with elephant for years. Only in few locations we have seen that interactions has turned into a negative way. So that has help us to start some community work that also includes like education, that also includes like protecting their properties. But we have insisted in them that it has to be a shared responsibility.
Wow.
Conservation organization like us should not be just seen as giving money or giving funding to that. They also need to give their time so that that partnership works. So wherever we are putting the solar fence, the local people provides the time, the labor. That means they provide that thing, and we provide the actual material. And in that way, the share responsibility, they also feel that yes, we have given our time and our expertise, and Aranok, or in collaboration with forest department, we have provided them the raw materials, so it is working there. So wherever we have erected those solar fences, people are taking care because they thought that it is their own
Yes.
for that. So, yeah, so in that way I think we are slowly getting into getting larger support from the communities, which we hope that in coming future will help us reduce the casualties on both sides.
That's a good example, and I like the word shared responsibility very much because I think that's the key thing. But before I move to Laurel, I still want you to a little bit of a reflection on RNX role, because I think you've been leading RNX for so many years now, and I specifically want to understand how you've been integrating science, policy, and people. That integration is something which is very tricky. And how have you been able to do it? And what have your strategies been? And what has worked for you?
Okay. See, our research are basically applied oriented, which aim to assist management. Okay, that means if there is a problem, our research tries to find out how best it could be addressed. Communication with the local people are very important because I always treat them as the second line of defense, especially in terms of the conservation of protected areas and the species which are mainly found in the protected areas. Advocacy or policy, we are quite fortunate that we have been part of the State Board of Wildlife or the National Board of Wildlife, where the policy level discussions are taking place. So we often get the opportunities to raise, the issues that needs the policy decisions, or that needs the kind attention of the decision makers. So in that way, we have been able to flag the issues which cannot be addressed even at the forest officials level, but it can be addressed, at the decision making level, that is the political decision making level. So in that way, we have been able to make a triangular approach, communicating with the people, applied research, and then inflicting those experience into a policy change. And that is where we made some progress. Unfortunately, our government has also reciprocated by taking some of the very bold decisions. For example, in past few years, the government of Assam has almost connected the Kaziranga National Park, where it's in the central Assam, with Orang National Park in far western Assam along river Brahmaputra. So that river Brahmaputra now gives free dispersal space for not only rhinos and elephants, but also tigers and other herbivores, including through the riverine areas, because it is protected, the movement of gangetic dolphin. So I think sometimes government needs good information based on good research in order to take decisions. I personally feel sometimes government may take wrong decisions from our perspective because they are not fed with the right information to take a decisive decision.
Well, that's really insightful. Thank you so much, Dr. Talukdar, for giving us those experiences from RNEC, and I compliment you for completing so many years. I think almost 3 decades of work at RNEC, and the magnificent work it is doing to conserving our biodiversity. Now, I'd like to move to Laurel, who's right now in Hong Kong, and she's a Nat Geo explorer. And I think we should look at a little bit about how exploration and the communication of exploration has led to some kind of conservation action. Laurel would love to know a little bit more about your experiences of covering environmental crisis and how visual storytelling can drive empathy and action. Laurel, you're muted.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, so about some of my work, my first National Geographic grant was to start a project here called the Hong Kong Explorers Initiative. And the idea behind that was to encourage people in Hong Kong to explore and appreciate our great outdoors, because Hong Kong, a lot of people don't know, even in Hong Kong, although that's changed, is that it's actually very green. There's a lot of nature. Hong Kong is 40% protected. It's only a quarter developed. We have hundreds of islands. We have a lot of beautiful nature and biodiversity that for a long time, a lot of people didn't appreciate. And it felt like Hong Kong is also, as such a densely populated place, such an urban place, was super disconnected with nature. And which was ironic considering the incredible access we do have here. So I realized this project, this was more than 10 years ago, but I realized, there's so many of our root problems when it comes to the environment, whether it's things like pollution or our consumption or the wildlife trade, for which many trades had Hong Kong as its hub. It all came down to people just not really understanding their impact on nature, not understanding that our behavior affects the environment. And it just seemed like such a simple solution just to get people outside. So, I organized snorkeling trips, bird watching trips, and I gave a lot of talks, actually. That was a big part of it, giving talks to schools and really just communicating this on a very personal level with school children and adult audiences as well about what we do have in Hong Kong, and encouraging them to go out and explore. And so besides that, I've I'm a documentary filmmaker. I'm also a photographer and journalist. I produced and hosted a documentary about the ivory trade. So for that, I went undercover in the DRC, in the Democratic Republic of Congo, posing as a buyer in an ivory market and in a wildlife market. And my involvement with that really came from my experience volunteering with the World Wildlife Fund in the Central African Republic, where I was working mostly with gorillas, but I worked in an area where there were forest elephants. And we were evacuated because of the civil war at the time. This was back in 2013. And 6 weeks after we left, poachers came to an area where we worked and killed 26 elephants, and sawed off their ivory and left their bodies in the clearing. And at that point, I was back in Hong Kong, and I realized that Hong Kong actually potentially played a big role in that. At the time, it was the largest ivory market, legal ivory market in the world. Hong Kong felt so far away from these places, but actually it could very well be having a very direct impact. That ivory could have well ended up in Hong Kong, which could have very well ended up funding the conflict. And I realized, as someone who had the privilege of witnessing these places and knowing about these incidents firsthand, as someone here in Hong Kong, I could have a much bigger impact telling these stories, showing people what I've seen, than I could really as a young volunteer in the Central African Republic, as a complete foreigner. Um, After that, I worked on a documentary about the trade in jaguar parts. So another trade that stems from Asian demand. For that, I went undercover in South America and in Southeast Asia. And for that, I really wanted to, I told the director, Liz Unger, who was also a National Geographic Explorer, this is a topic that I wanted to work on and to help with, but I didn't want to put forth yet another narrative which we see a lot of in the Western world, where it's about, Asian consumers, Asian demand that is fueling these wildlife trades. And often these narratives are very simplistic, often just outright racist, where it's about, there's this undertone of speaking of Asian people and behaviors as being, barbaric or ignorant or savage. And I wanted to participate in this film, but make sure that it brought a more nuanced conversation. So it was actually a very personal film. My parents are in it. I actually find out on camera that my dad had consumed rhino horn one time decades ago, that my parents had given me ivory as medicine when I was a baby, and which of course is very vulnerable, right? Especially as someone who works in these spaces, and knowing what kind of vitriol people get from the West, from Western conservationists. But I wanted to show that it's I think for a lot of us in Asia, even those of us working in conservation, we come from cultures that have this history of engaging in practices and behaviors that we know as conservationists isn't good for the environment. Since then, I covered conflict as well. It's often related, right? Conflict and environment, but I've done a story about deep sea mining. I've done a story about urban wildlife. I think as a storyteller, as a journalist, I will confess that I think we don't necessarily bring an evidence-based approach to the storytelling. As journalists, it's not necessarily seen as our job to change behavior. We certainly often want to raise awareness and just shed light on an issue, but I wouldn't say that it's really embedded in journalistic practice to have a theory of change and to attempt to have a certain behavior change. And one could argue that's not really a journalist's job. But for me, certainly, I am trying to think of that more and more in terms of, how can I best tell a story or do my job in a way that, of course, still respects journalistic principles, but is able to at least make a positive difference. And I think, in journalism and documentary filmmaking, it's often a lot more vague and abstract. But I think there is, especially in documentary, more of a movement towards impact campaigns, where you take the film and you go out and actually try to create change, create conversations, measure the change, So I think it is going that direction, but I'm not sure that that will happen in journalism simply because that's not the nature of the field, I think.
But Laurel, that's a fabulous experience sharing about what your efforts have been. But I am sure, just like we have had, the whole idea of starting Same as Vatavaran was exactly that, that to connect storytellers like you to action oriented like Vivabda or Purnima, to be able to connect them where action is happening on ground, where they need films like yours to move people, whether it's communities, whether it's policymakers, whether it's scientists, whether it's the influencers, or whether it's media, to be actually talking more about what you have beautifully documented. And I have seen not just films like yours, whether it's Ivory, and we've had some films like that in Vatavaran, which has really moved people to take action. And people have cried when they've seen those films and said, "We didn't know this is happening." And I can give you an example of when we showed a film on paintbrush. Brushes made out of mongoose hair to schools, they have taken a campaign to ban such brushes. Things like that has moved. So even one action, even one uh, person taking a pledge to not do something that is harmful is an impact for us that makes a difference. So I think we need storytellers like you who use their heart and of course the mind, because they come from journalistic backgrounds, and do the research and bring the evidence to be able to make that connect with the audiences. So I'll come back to you, Laurel, a little later, but I want to bring in Dr. Purnima because she's done exactly that. She's done more grounds on ground work with connecting with women in her community, and touching the cultural chord, using the cultural chord, I would say, to connect women to conservation. Dr. Purnima, I would love to hear your story of the Hargila Army, which we are known for, and really exploring the role of emotional storytelling, which Laurel also shared, and bring in the cultural pride and women's empowerment in really changing the attitudes towards conservation of a bird like the reviled bird at the stork that you talk about. Over to you, Dr. Purnima.
Yes. So I'm audible, right?
Yes.
Okay. So at first, thank you so much and namaskar from Assam. Thank you so much, Dr. Basanti Rao, for inviting me. Thank you so much, CMS Vatavaran. Yeah, I'm really honored to be here, and it's so hot here. I just texted Bihovda. It's so hot here, and I just came from field, but I feel really connected to all of you, and it was such an inspiring talk to hear from Bihovda and Laurel. Yeah. So and yeah, so when I think just before a while, the species, the bird was mentioned. So yeah, I want all of you and all of you here and all of you who are hearing me and you from behind, all the international audience or national audience. I want all of you to fall in love at the first sight with the storks, the Hargila bird, and that's why I have a strategy. So can you see the Hargila bird in my necklace?
Yes.
Yeah. So can you see the Hargila bird in my ear? I think, and in my dress, in my Assamese textile, Assamese mekhela sadar. So I want to show you more because I want all of you to really fall in love with the Hargila birds. And here also, my whole house is like Hargila. My daughters are also Hargila. So yeah, you can see. And I think it will be more meaningful if I show you the Hargila bird in our Assamese gamusa. So yeah, and yeah, one thing left, and yeah, this is my world is confined to this. So most of the time you will find me. So I love to sleep like this also sometimes. So maybe you can see the stork's headdress. So yeah, so this is the Hargila bird, and if you allow me, I want to share my screen also with all of you for a while, and I'll present a few slides. And whenever you want to stop me, I'm okay. Just stop me and ask me question. So yeah, so I always tell that welcome to our family, our Hargila family, and I think the this title itself tells about the behavior sense, and today I invite you, all of you, to our communities, to our village, and I want to give a strong message that when communities unite and communities come forward like this, they can transform a bad omen to a cultural icon. And while I mentioned bad omen, I would definitely come to that later. But yes, just 3 days back, we celebrated this event. We celebrate baby shower for Hargila like the way we do for our Assamese expectant mothers, who is in Hindi, it is called God Bharai, and in Assamese, we call it as Panchamrit ceremony. And you can see what is baby shower. So, yeah, and you can feel that conservation, the optimism here. So, maybe a little bit I would like to share with you. Yeah. All our village women. I think maybe I'll share the video with you later. So yeah, so you can see now why I told about bad omen, and how it converted into cultural pride now. So yeah, yeah, it always deeply pained me that this bird was treated as bad omen or disease carrier, a harbinger of bad luck. And now you can see our women, they wear this in the song. Most of the women came with the same dresses where they have Hargila storks and with the headdress. So yeah, so it's part of our culture and tradition. And this is the bird. You can see how beautiful this bird is. And when I started my work, this bird was, I found, I think one incident has changed my life. And this bird was often treated as, this bird was often poisoned or persecuted. And some story like this I want to share. At the time, I think it was in 2007, I was a new mother of my twin daughters, and they were babies. And I think that I want to talk about that motherhood, and at the same time, that helped me, I think, in my behavior sense. At first, my behavior sense, which lead to develop the strategy to work with communities and all. Yeah, so I want to tell this incident. I saw a man cutting down a huge nesting tree which was hosting 9 nests, and all the baby birds fell down. And when I heard this, and I landed there, and I just tried to confront with the person, and suddenly I found that the situation became worse, and the person and the neighborhood and everyone became so angry on me, and they started mocking me, yelling at me, and someone of them told that this bird is a bad omen. And I think I was a mother, and my motherhood, my that instinct fired up, and I realized that how they can talk, how they can label something, label my daughters, or label my child as bad omen. And I still remember that that heartbeat that I was holding. It's a baby, but can you imagine? It looks like an adult. And this way, actually, everything started. And I think it's very important to know about the conservation problem, about the Hargila and other species of storks and other species of birds which breed in the private lands. So we have to give a voice for the species which are in the unprotected area, non-protected area. So and I think our Hargila birds now represent that. And so this way we started working with people to sense the perception, working with different stakeholders, and basically to bring bring the simple homemaker woman from the home, from the village to be conservationist. And I found this strategy to be the most powerful tool for conservation, I think, being a woman. And I realized that. And initially, when I started organizing meetings with the nest tree owners, our women's participation was so less. When we started felicitating them in the public meeting, I found that many women and many tree owners got threatened that their lands will be occupied because it is their own land. And I realized that our people have to be their government. And why I'm talking about women here, as many women, they think that that men are the owner of the land. So all the time men come to the meeting so that something is happening wrong or something like this. So then I started talking to our women, and they often told that they need to cook, they need to be engaged in cooking and many household chores, so they can't come to such kind of meeting. And this way, actually, I think conservation began with the cooking. And I always tell that food brings love and unity and also conservation. So I started organizing cooking competitions, cooking festivals for our women. And then slowly, and trust me, earlier the women who laughed at me, they started joining like anything. And that strategy worked a lot. And that is not a strategy, that is something that resonates me also. And then this way we collaborated. And we started working, playing this web of lives games and all. And these are the tools that communicate for conservation. And these are the baby showers, and I invite you all, just generally, if you want, yeah, this is a Hargila calendar that I think you can see we make. And in the we tell about every month. So we organize, earlier we organized baby shower in the month of October, November and December, when the birds are laying eggs. So now we organize baby shower every day, and our communities want it every day. And with this, our Assamese traditional prayers, Nam Kirtan, yeah, so we do it. And yeah, so I think Dr. Basanti ji would ask me how we do communication. So I want to tell. So yeah, you can see some offering here, right? So what I started doing, like everyone came to the temples and to the prayer halls with the offerings to God. And one offering, which we call as horai, that horai is also named in to someone's name, like some persons or someone's daughter or son, or if somebody has an exam. So for the well-being of the family, a horai is given to God. And when I saw this, I found, yeah, so I come from a village, and I also found it in my entire life. So I started giving horai for Hargila in the temples. And then lots of horais gathered together, and one of the horai was for Hargila. And this way, one day Hargila became a part of our Assamese traditional prayers. And the baby shower, it is, my God, it is powerful tool. For others it might be just simple, but for me it's so depth. In the song they sing, it is all about the birds, how to protect. And so yeah, it's very powerful, and how our communities have that ownership feeling, emotionally attachment for the birds. So this way we do. So we don't impose policies, we connect conservation with culture, rituals, livelihood. And yeah, and we also organize the baby, when the babies are born, newborn babies, we also celebrate. Like Hargila now become a part of like their children or themselves. So slowly, without any planning, our women formed a Hargila Army with a small band of women. And you can see how colorful our women are with the Hargila headdress. And they move from one village to another village and do the campaign. Our women become the educators. So this is like village to village education network. So we have today also, we had a campaign in another village. Every day we have campaign in different villages. And then so our women now, today, 3 women are invited as speakers to schools, to other Ban Mahotsav. So I'm so proud that our women, they become the leaders. And I often tell that our work is an integration of behavior science, culture, pride, and tradition. And now we have, like, with all this village network, we have over 20,000 women joined as Hargila Army, like a sisterhood model. And I think this pledge, we have a pledge for joining. And this pledge is so powerful that through this pledge, our women also pledge to save the backyard, biodiversity, and to bring their men, their children to the Hargila Army. This way, we work like a family. And I also want to tell you that Hargila Army, it's like, it's so big, it's beyond my control. Everyone has their own chapters. It's like, yeah, it's like a very organic, everyone is growing. And yeah, so I'm very proud also. And sometimes I'm worried also. It's so big, but it's one of the, I think, happiest moment in my life. Yeah, so yeah, this is about like how our women tells about the Hargila, about their strategy, about the entire story through drama, and they go as speakers. And and I believe that storytelling is so powerful. I myself go to school and communities, and every day I believe in storytelling, which can change the world. And if we use the storytelling as a power for climate change education, it is very powerful. So I think you support me. And so we also do, so we are very infectious. Basically, our campaign is very infectious. In the wedding also, we do Hargila campaign, in the Gita Bhagavat procession also. And so every woman who are associated with us, they are the leaders. And I'm very proud that this work is not only saving the bird, and also empowering women, thousands and thousands of women, and bringing social changes. Like, we all are united. So many people, you don't need me. You just go there everywhere, when any corner, and just ask people. They will tell the same story, how their mindset change, and how they all are working together. And that is the unity I always learn, and which intrigues me. And so now you can see the changes. And we use design, we use textiles as a tool of communication and behavior change. So here you see the bird here, and you fall in love with the bird, and you will ask many questions, right? About, so because we become so passionate to see such designs. So now our women are weaving for a cause. And I always believe that livelihood and conservation go hand in hand. It cannot be isolated. And through some online website and online media and all, some organization like Pasu Pakshi and some other organization, they put our products online all over the world. And this gives our women, so proud. They are so proud of it. And and they are so busy now, and they get lots of income out of it. Many tourists come. So you can see, you can meet our people here, our guests from IUCN also. And so and they meet our communities and our women. And I want to also share, like, this is also a part of Natural History Museum in London, like our Hargila Army dresses and the headdresses. So and many other museums. So this is all about the support. All are supporting our communities. And so now our women are the leaders. And and their entire family is with us. And this is the way our women every day, actually, this is a non-stoppable movement. You can't find a single day that we miss. So today or yesterday or tomorrow. So it's like this is the same thing we do. And it's like a very infectious movement. And so this is not about the storks now. It's about restoration, and about not only Hargila, about other species of storks also, other species of birds. So I think conservation is not only about one species, and it is not about a rocket science. It is about empowerment. It is about our people, and nurturing our young minds So yeah, we also work a lot, and I keep doing lots of storytelling programs with the children, and yeah, and we have a Hargila Learning Center, and here in Hargila Learning Center, our communities become the educators, and they teach other communities, and especially the children, and they teach children about this behavior sense. And we always tell each children, each person in our communities, whenever we have campaign, that lead by example. So before telling others, so lead by examples. So our deputy commissioner and all, so we work with Kamrup district administration, Kamrup police, yeah, so they are a part of all this celebration, and we all work together. And so I always believe in innovation and creativity can also lead to behavior sense. So when we work with children, and so all the communities, we want to be very innovative and creative, and we want to adopt everything from our culture and tradition, art. So I also, it's a very, I think it's a very strong message I want to give, that we all the time we talk about carbon targets, extinction rates, and global goals, but what about the ecological memory? So we often bring our children, bring our young girls, and educate them and ask them to connect with their parents, their grandma, to ask to document the ecological memory. And I think it is so important, powerful tool, and that can also help in studying, assessing the behavior sense. So this way we are working, and these are the tiny baby birds. We also do rescue, working with government and forest department who supports us. So more than 500 chicks we rescued, and our women also play a very big role, our youths big role here. So this is also a kind of mechanism for behavior sense, I think. So when a baby bird fall down, we don't miss any opportunity to create awareness. So we do comics, we do a lot of art, dramas out of this situation also. For example, Dia is a little girl. She saw a baby bird falling down, and she called her parents, and then her parents rescued, and we were there, and with the support of police and forest department, we rescued and released the bird also after 3 months. So Dia is the main character here, and this also makes our communities feel very proud. So now we are replicating this model to many other stock species. We are very hopeful, and so these are our nesting platforms also. So we have lots of science which we integrate, but we always highlight our community's effort, who are the leaders. So results are very rewarding, as Bihovda said, that rhinos are now vulnerable species. So I also want to tell you that I don't know, like I don't know it is good or bad, but so I want to share that Hargila is also downlisted to near threatened, from endangered to near threatened, and all the credit goes to our communities. And tree owners developed an ownership feeling, and our village, Dodora Posoria Singimari, are the largest breeding colony in the world, and the birds are expanding to other colonies. We are also expanding together with the birds. And so these are the numbers, maybe. So these are so I always tell that when we work with communities, where communities are in the forefront, where our women are in the forefront, we can build a resilient communities, and that can happen through behavior sense. So I think I'm at the end, but how we communicate and reach people's hearts and minds. So I think everything starts in heart before policies. So I'll give you another, just a little bit hype, how we, so this is the bird sounds we do every day in our life, our communities, our children, wherever I go, our conference, seminar, meetings, and all our women also similarly do this wherever they go as speakers. So I think Hargila Army is a replicable model to conserve biodiversity. So by blending behavior sense, science, culture, and women's leadership, So with all of your support, thank you so much for your kind listening, and with all of your support, let us soar very high like the storks. So I'm very grateful to all who supports us, and I hope I'm still there, right? I can't hear from any one of you, but I hope I'm still there.
Yes, you are there, and we
Yeah,
love listening to you, Purnima.
thank you.
You're not only infectious, we are so inspirational. And you've not only
Thank
had
you.
twin girls, you have so many people who you've mothered and you've inspired. So you're always a pleasure to listen to. And I
Thank you
love
so
your
much.
story. It is really, really inspirational and so much. The power of one is a good example to showcase here. And you've actually showcased all the slides that I actually talked about: trusted voices, starting a conversation. You never said save the stock. You always
Yeah.
use the different mediums of culture, song, understanding your local women, bringing them out, making the sisterhood, motherhood, the central. It's absolutely a beautiful classic
Yeah.
example of what and how we can use storytelling and different aspects of connecting with people to make sure that we can conserve biodiversity. I like the concept of restoration of different ecosystems and biodiversity and different species, but also I like the concept of resilient communities, especially focusing on women, because I think you've given new avenues of coming to women to come out, earn livelihoods, talk about something that they are passionate about. So I think you've really touched a lot of hearts and lot of not just in your community but outside who have heard your story. So it's a
Thank you
pleasure
so
listening
much.
to you.
Thank you.
I don't think we have much time now, but I do want to give Vivda and Laurel a few last words before we close for the day today. Vivda, do you want to share anything else that you wanted to talk about that I didn't get an opportunity for?
Well, the species, some of the species like, the rhino or the elephants, that will be always remain a very conservation and protection dependent species.
Mhm.
So in order to ensure protections, the communication at every level is very essential. Strategy needs to change over the time based on the challenges. So I think the constant monitoring is the key in order to adopt where the changes are needed, and in order to continue the effort that has ensured that the pachyderm, both the rhinos and the elephants still survives, and we need to ensure that our actions will ensure that these species will remain for future generation to see alive and not just in the picture.
I hope so too, because we need champions like you and Purnima who are taking these species as your own babies and your own family and fighting for them. We need more champions like you. Laurel, I think I want to give you the last word also, and to explain how exploration and documentary filmmaking, which is your forte, can bridge the science and public awareness. I think that we did not talk about, but I think that is also something that you are interested in, right? Aren't you?
For sure. Yeah, I think I have a master's in biodiversity and conservation, which I specifically did because I wanted to be able to better communicate science and be a bridge between scientists and conservationists and wider audiences. And I think that storytelling piece is so important. There's communication and behavior change, but I think storytelling, which really to me emphasizes authenticity and personal storytelling is really important, and that's something that's forgotten. And like you said before, even though the impact of these kinds of stories might be not as measurable or concrete as some other more scientific approaches, I think inspiring people is so important. And I think stories about exploration, stories about that remind people that they too can go out there, that they too as individuals can have an impact. And Dr. Purnima is such a beautiful example of that, of how I think especially now, so many of us feel disempowered or feel like we can't make a difference. But I think stories are a really important tool if done well, that can inspire people to feel empowered and remind them that they can really make a difference.
Fabulous. I like to thank all three of you. Purnima, do you want anything to say? The last word is always yours because you're such an inspiration to listen to. And I always feel that, you really motivate all of us to go on. And as Laurel and Bibabda mentioned, that we need champions and we need stories like yours to keep the conservation movement, the conservation communication going on, and the action that we do on ground to continue to ensure that our ecosystem and the biodiversity is resilient and is restored for our more generations to enjoy, as Vibhabda rightly said. So Purnima.
Yes, thank you once again. I just want to tell you something else. Recently, I was invited to a village. I won't name that village here, but I'll tell you the person and the organization who invited me there. They told that many organizations, many organizations, or many. No, I'm not talking about any organization, but there are lots of meetings, campaigns happen in their schools and schools and in community halls or in the village, so that they can save the birds there, biodiversity, and everyone listen. And then again. And again, the exercise of hunting the species or hitting the birds with the stone starts. So they asked me like how we can change the behavior, because see, we are doing so much. We invite people, we do lots of campaigns. So that really made me think a lot about this. So we really need to we all the conservationists who are working, so we really need to develop such a strategy, so through which we can connect with people, bring them as the forefront, give them all the credit so that they become the stakeholders, that ownership, so that they start protecting the species. It's not that some other organization who went there and that is their duty. So we really need to work on that kind of strategy. And I always tell, when it is about behavior sense, to everyone, just leading by example is the best strategy. That is, so thank you so much once again. I'm really thrilled and learned a lot being here.
Always listening to you is a pleasure, Dr. Purnima. And I love your locket, and I love your jewelry, and I love your beautiful textiles. And that itself is so inspirational. But I want to end today's discussion with a big thank you to all of you for taking out time and sharing with us your beautiful work and wonderful work. And I wish you all the very best for continuing. But I want to leave with a beautiful word that Bibhabda has given me today, and I'm going to use it again and again: shared responsibility. Yes, I think communication for conservation action is also shared responsibility, and we mustn't forget that. So thank you once again for sharing and coming together, and I hope you will enjoy listening to us and you find it useful. Please do connect with Dr. Bibhabda at UNEP, or Laurel, who's a Nat Geo explorer. You can Google her and find her, and Dr. Purnima's work is well known. You can connect with them to learn more about their work and in the respective field. Together, we will make a difference. I hope so too. Thank you again for joining VATAVARAN Talks. We will see you next time in another discussion next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.